Hey, this is Nick Kivlen from Sunflower Bean, and I'm here with Premier Guitar's Big Five. My favorite guitar is a Fender Strat, which I have here. This is one of the brand new ones that they just sent me. It's a made in Japan replica of a 50s Strat. I've been playing Strats since I was like 13. When I was really young, I had a metal guitar, and I brought it to Guitar Center and I traded it in for a used, I think, American Strat. And I pretty much haven't been able to get away from them since. Like I'll try to play like an SG or I played a Guild for a little while, but for whatever reason, like I just can't get away from like the single coils and like the Fender scale line. It's made in Japan. It's a reissue of an 80s reissue of a 50s Strat. So it's a copy of a copy, which I think is just really funny. They're 50s reissues. They're like supposed to be like more sparkly or more high end, I think, because the older guitars like had more high end. And this humbucker actually has a coil tap on it that I'm almost always using. If I was stuck on a desert island, I have to say it would be House of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. It's probably the album I've loved consistently for the longest in my life. And it also has a very summertime feel. So if I'm on an island, sitting in the sand, not being able to go anywhere, I'm going to want something that's like, it has a range and it has a lot of feel good songs, and I just think that I could probably listen to that album over and over and always find something new that I love about it. My biggest guitar culture pet peeve is probably any kind of gatekeeping or anything that overcomplicates it. So people who like, especially when you go to a studio, there's so much gear and it's all very complicated, and usually you can have as many engineers with you as possible, but there's always going to be something that no one knows how to use. And I don't really like that situation where there's like a lot of pressure and a lot of like complicated stuff going on. I like to just plug in and play. And when we record at home, we don't really spend a lot of time, for better or for worse, like stressing out over the gear. Like we usually just go direct into the computer, don't use any amps, and then get the best take possible by just having fun and going for it. And usually the first time I play something, that's the take. So I guess like my biggest pet peeve would be like people overstating like the importance of like expensive gear and a lot of gear and like doing complicated things to guitar tones, because I think that the simplest thing is most of the time the best thing. I really like this question because I don't think that there's anything that would shock anyone. Like whenever people ask me this, I usually am pretty boring and like name all like the stereotypical like guitar heroes from like every generation. But I guess the thing that is the least represented is that when I first started playing guitar when I was around 8 or 9, I was obsessed with metal. So I started out playing mostly metal. So I loved like Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold. I loved Metallica. I loved Slipknot and System of a Down. So like a lot of my dexterity and like chops come from like learning how to play like metal songs. And then when I was older, I got into like punk and indie and shoegaze and all that stuff. And I kind of carried over, like, I think a little bit of like the technicality from learning like insane guitar solos and like insane riffs. My secret weapon since we've started touring again has definitely been the wah-wah pedal. It's just the classic one with nothing on it. There isn't a lot of wah in use today, which I think is interesting because it's pretty much been heavily used in every genre of rock music since the 60s. Like it shows up in 90s alt rock, it shows up in pop punk, it shows up like across the board, like American indie rock to heavy metal to hip hop and funk, and especially psychedelic music in the 60s and 70s. But there aren't a lot of people using wahs today. And I thought that was kind of interesting why it's fallen so far out of popularity. And I've been using it a ton just to like kind of like, it just makes everything much more hectic. And I think like playing with the wah and the whammy bar at the same time is kind of like the hardest difficulty level of guitar playing, especially live, because like you have like a lot of variables in there. You're not only like using your like you're selecting notes and playing, you're using your rhythm hand to also bend the notes out of tune, and then your foot is rhythmically like altering like the frequency at the same time. So it's like the most multifaceted playing. And at first it was like really difficult to like go on stage and do it because you have to really commit. And I've found it like really just difficult and challenging, but in a fun way to like use the whammy a lot and to use the wah together. If I'm playing a solo, I'll turn it on and just like kind of put it forward so that the guitar becomes like really high pitched and it cuts through really well. And I'll play like the first like bars of the solo with it like that. And then when it goes to like probably like a faster part, like then I'll start like oscillating it because it kind of makes it like feel more exciting. Because if you're just like doing like note salad, it can be kind of like, I don't know, like boring. But then with the wah, it like gets like this really like it kind of like oscillates it in a cool way.